Jake Morrison stood at the top of the lighthouse, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The sun was setting over the Oregon coast, painting the sky orange and pink. He had been working here for 3 years now, ever since he left the Marines. The job was quiet, which was exactly what he needed. His hand moved to the small crystal pendant hanging around his neck. He always wore it, even though he never told anyone where it came from. The crystal was smooth and clear, about the size of a quarter. Sometimes it felt warm against his skin, but he figured that was just his imagination. 10 years ago, everything had been different. Jake was 25 then, a Marine sergeant on his second tour in Afghanistan. He remembered that day like it was yesterday, even though he tried hard to forget it. His squad had been on patrol in the mountains when they heard the crash. It sounded like thunder, but the sky was clear. They followed the smoke and found something that should not have existed. A ship, but not like any plane or helicopter Jake had ever seen. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop, and it was buried halfway into the rocky ground. "What the hell is that?" his teammate Danny had whispered. Jake had no answer. The ship was warm to the touch and hummed with energy. There were no markings, no windows that he could see, but there was a crack in the side, and strange blue light was leaking out. Against his training, Jake had crawled inside through the crack. The inside was even stranger than the outside. Everything glowed with soft blue light, and the walls seemed to pulse like they were alive. And there, lying on what looked like a bed made of crystal, was a girl. She was maybe 16 years old, but she was not human. Her skin was blue, like the color of deep ocean water. Her hair was silver, and seemed to move on its own, even though there was no wind. She was bleeding, but her blood was not red. It was gold, and it glowed. The girl's eyes had opened when Jake approached. They were purple, like amethyst stones. She said something in a language he had never heard before. It sounded like music, all flowing notes and gentle sounds. She was clearly dying. Jake should have called for backup. He should have followed protocol. Instead, he pulled out his water bottle and held it to her lips. She drank gratefully, some color returning to her strange blue face. He tore a piece of his uniform and pressed it against her worst wound, trying to stop the golden bleeding. "It's okay," he had told her, even though she probably could not understand. "You're safe now." The girl had looked at him with those purple eyes, and Jake felt like she could see right into his soul. She reached into a pouch on her strange clothes and pulled out the crystal pendant. With shaking hands, she pressed it into his palm and closed his fingers around it. Then she said one word that sounded almost like English. "Friend." That was when his radio crackled to life. Command was calling all units back to base. Something big was happening. Jake had stayed with the girl until a medical team arrived, but they pushed him away and took over. Later, men in black suits showed up and everything became classified. The official report said they had found the wreckage of an enemy drone. Jake was told to never speak of what he really saw. A month later, Jake was discharged from the Marines. His superiors said it was for his own good. They gave him medals and honors, but they made it clear that some secrets were too big for regular soldiers to carry. Now, 10 years later, Jake lived alone in his lighthouse. He kept the crystal pendant as the only proof that it had really happened. Sometimes he wondered if the blue girl had survived. Sometimes he wondered if he had imagined the whole thing. The lighthouse beam swept across the dark ocean. Jake was about to go inside for dinner when something caught his eye. There were lights in the sky, but they were not stars or planes. They were moving in patterns, like they had purpose. As Jake watched, more lights appeared. Dozens of them. They hung in the sky over the ocean, silent and still. The crystal pendant around his neck began to feel warm. Then it began to glow. Jake pulled the pendant out from under his shirt and stared at it. The crystal was shining with the same blue light he remembered from the crashed ship 10 years ago. As he watched, the light grew brighter and brighter. Out, on the ocean, the water began to glow too. A soft blue light was rising from the depths, getting stronger by the minute. The lights in the sky seemed to pulse in response. Jake's heart began to race. He fumbled for his radio and called the Coast Guard. "This is Beacon Point Lighthouse," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We have multiple unknown objects in the sky. They appear to be—" He stopped. How could he explain this? "Lighthouse, this is Coast Guard Station. We see them too. Every major city is reporting the same thing. Unknown aircraft over Washington, New York, Los Angeles. Military is scrambling jets now." Jake looked down at the glowing pendant in his hand. After 10 years of silence, it was calling to something, or maybe something was calling to it. The lights in the sky began to descend toward the water. Jake watched as one of them grew larger and larger, heading straight for his lighthouse. Whatever was about to happen, he had a feeling his quiet life was over. He thought about the blue girl with purple eyes and wondered if he was about to get some answers. The whole world was watching the sky. Every news channel showed the same thing. Huge ships floating over every major city on Earth. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ships looked like they were made of crystal and starlight, but they were the size of skyscrapers. Jake stood outside his lighthouse, still holding the glowing pendant. The light coming toward him was getting closer. It was not as big as the ships over the cities, but it was still bigger than any plane he had ever seen. His phone was ringing non-stop. News reporters, government agents, old friends from the Marines. Everyone wanted to know why the aliens were asking for him by name. Yes, asking for him. The ships had broadcast a message in perfect English to every radio and television on Earth. "We seek the human called Jake Morrison. We come in peace to honor an old debt." Jake had stopped answering his phone an hour ago. How could he explain something he did not understand himself? All he knew was that the pendant was getting warmer and the blue light was getting brighter. The alien ship landed on the beach below his lighthouse. It touched down as gentle as a feather, making no sound at all. The ship was beautiful up close. It looked like it was carved from a single piece of blue crystal, and soft light flowed through it like water. Jake walked down the rocky path to the beach. His legs felt shaky, but he had to know. After 10 years of questions, maybe he would finally get answers. A doorway opened in the side of the ship. No, not opened. The wall just became transparent like ice melting in the sun. A figure stepped out, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. It was her, the blue girl from the crashed ship. But she was not a girl anymore. She was tall and graceful, maybe in her 20s now. Her blue skin seemed to glow with inner light, and her silver hair moved like liquid metal. She wore armor that looked like it was made from the same material as her ship. Starlight seemed to flow across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly, but her eyes were the same, purple like amethyst, and they looked at Jake like she remembered everything. "Hello, Jake Morrison," she said. Her voice was like music, but now she spoke perfect English. "You kept my gift." Jake looked down at the pendant in his hand. It was shining so bright now that it lit up the whole beach. "You're alive," he whispered. "Because of you," she said. She walked toward him across the sand, and with each step, flowers bloomed where her feet touched the ground. "My name is Lyra Thane. I am the Empress of the Zephyrian Empire. I rule 47 star systems and command fleets that span the galaxy. But 10 years ago I was a dying girl and you saved my life." Jake stared at her. An empress? He had saved an empress and never knew it. "I don't understand," he said. "What were you doing on Earth? Why were you in that crashed ship?" Lyra smiled, and her smile was sad. "I was running for my life. There were those who did not want me to become Empress. They tried to kill me and my ship was damaged in the fight. I crashed on your world by accident, far from help, far from home. I thought I would die alone." She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the stars reflected in her purple eyes. But then, a human soldier found me. A man who had every reason to fear me, to call for help, to let others decide my fate. Instead, he gave me water when I was dying of thirst. He stopped my bleeding with his own clothes. He stayed with me until help came, and he asked for nothing in return. Jake remembered that day. The girl had been so small, so helpless. He had just done what felt right. "I kept the pendant. he said, holding it up. I never knew what it was. 4. It was a beacon, Lyra explained. A way for me to find you again, if you were ever in great danger. But it also did something else. It marked you as a friend of the Zephyrian Empire. That mark has protected your world for 10 years. Protected? Us from what? Lyra's expression grew serious. From others who would have seen humanity as a threat to be eliminated. Your species is young, but you have something that scares the older races. You have the ability to change everything around you, to make allies from enemies, to find hope where there should be none. She gestured toward the sky where the massive ship still floated over Earth cities. 3 great powers control this part of the galaxy. My empire, the Krex Coalition, and the Void Syndicate. Until today, humans were unknown. But now, everyone knows that Jake Morrison exists. Everyone knows that a human once saved the Empress of Zephyr. I don't understand what that means, Jake said. It means your species can no longer hide. The other powers are watching now. Some see you as potential allies. Others see you as a threat to be destroyed before you grow too strong. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean wind. Are we in danger? That depends, Lyra said, on what humanity chooses to do next. She held out her hand to him. I have come to offer your species something that has never been offered before. Not protection as subjects, not conquest as enemies, but partnership as equals. A place in the galactic community. Jake stared at her outstretched hand. Why? Why would you offer us that? Because 10 years ago a human showed me kindness when he had no reason to. Because that act of kindness changed the course of my life, and through me, changed the course of history. I believe humans have something the galaxy needs. What's that? Hope, she said simply. The willingness to help others even when it costs you everything. The ability to see friends where others see only enemies. Jake thought about his old life in the Marines. About the men he had served with who would run into fire to save a stranger. About Danny, who had died protecting a village of people he had never met before. About all the humans he knew who tried to do the right thing, even when it was hard. What if we say no? He asked. Lyra's smile became sad again. Then I will honor the old ways and leave your world to face the galaxy alone. The Krex Coalition believes in strength above all else. They will test you. The Void Syndicate believes in knowledge above all else. They will study you. I cannot protect you if you do not wish to be protected. Jake looked at the pendant in his hand, then at the alien Empress who had once been a dying girl. 10 years ago he had made a choice to help someone who needed it. Now he was being asked to make another choice, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. I'm just one person, he said. I can't decide for the whole world. No, Lyra agreed, but you can be the voice that starts the conversation. You can tell your leaders what I have told you. You can help them understand that this choice will shape the future of your species. She gestured back toward her ship. Will you come with me, Jake Morrison? Will you help me show your people what we are offering? Jake looked back at his lighthouse, at the simple life he had built for himself. Then he looked at Lyra, at the ships in the sky, at the pendant that had connected him to something larger than himself. He had saved one blue girl 10 years ago. Now maybe he could help save humanity. Yes, he said, and took her hand. Jake had never been in a spaceship before. Lyra's ship was nothing like the movies. There were no buttons or screens, just smooth walls that glowed with soft light. When Lyra touched the wall, images appeared in the air like holograms. This is the galaxy as we know it, she said. Jake stared at the 3-dimensional map floating in front of him. Thousands of stars, connected by glowing lines. Different colors marked different territories. The blue areas are my empire, Lyra explained. We believe in protecting the weak and finding peaceful solutions. The red areas belong to the Krex Coalition. They believe that only the strong deserve to survive. The yellow areas are controlled by the Void Syndicate. They care only about knowledge and power. Jake could see that the blue areas and red areas were roughly the same size, with yellow scattered throughout both. What about the gray areas? Unclaimed space. Dead worlds, dangerous regions, or places too far from civilization to matter. Lyra pointed to a tiny dot near the edge of the map. This is your solar system. Until now it was gray. The ship was moving, though Jake could not feel it. Through the transparent walls he could see Earth getting smaller below them. Soon they were among the stars, traveling faster than anything humans had ever built. "Where are we going?" Jake asked. "To my flagship. There are people you need to meet." The flagship was enormous. It looked like a floating city made of crystal and starlight. As their small ship approached, Jake could see other ships coming and going. Some looked like Lyra's ship, but others were completely different. "Those are Krex vessels," Lyra said, pointing to ships that looked like giant metal spears. "And those belonged to the Void Syndicate." The Syndicate ships were black spheres covered in strange patterns that hurt to look at. "They're here?" Representatives from both powers arrived. "As soon as they detected our ships over Earth, they want to meet the humans, too." Jake felt his stomach twist with nervousness. He was just a lighthouse keeper. How was he supposed to deal with alien empires? The flagship was even more impressive inside. Corridors stretched in all directions, filled with beings Jake had never imagined. Some looked almost human, others were completely alien. All of them stopped and stared as Lyra led him through the ship. "They know who you are," Lyra said quietly. "Word travels fast in the galaxy. The human who saved the Empress has become quite famous." They entered a large room with a round table in the center. Sitting at the table were two figures that made Jake's skin crawl. The first was clearly from the Krex coalition. It was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, covered in what looked like natural armor. Its face was like a cross between a crocodile and a beetle, with 4 red eyes and teeth like knives. When it saw Jake, it made a sound like grinding metal. "War Prime Vec Thorn," Lyra said, "leader of the Krex war fleets." The second figure was harder to describe. It looked mostly human, but its skin was too pale and its eyes were completely black. It wore robes that seemed to be made of living shadow. When it smiled at Jake, he felt like something was crawling inside his mind. "Dr. Nova Price," Lyra continued, "chief researcher for the Void Syndicate." Jake tried not to show his fear as he sat down at the table. These beings could probably destroy his entire planet without breaking a sweat. "So this is the famous human," Vec Thorn said. His voice sounded like rocks being crushed. "He looks weak. How did such a small creature save our Empress?" "Humans are not weak," Lyra said firmly. "They are different from us. They have qualities that even we do not fully understand." Dr. Price leaned forward, studying Jake like he was a bug under a microscope. "Interesting. I have read the reports about human behavior. You sacrifice yourselves for strangers. You fight impossible battles. You create beauty in the face of despair. Most species abandon such traits when they develop intelligence. Maybe that's why most species never get very far," Jake said, surprising himself by speaking up. Vec Thorn laughed, a horrible sound. Brave words from someone whose people still fight with chemical explosives. "Our weapons may be simple," Jake said, "but we know how to use them, and we're not afraid to die for what we believe in." "Death is meaningless," Vec Thorn replied. "Only victory matters." "That's where you're wrong," Jake said. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to win what really matters." Dr. Price tilted her head. "Explain." Jake thought about his time in the Marines, about friends who had died, saving others, about people who had given up their lives to protect strangers. "A few years ago, one of my friends threw himself on a grenade to save a school full of children he had never met. He died, but 30 kids lived. Most species would call that stupid. We call it heroic." "And what did this accomplish?" Dr. Price asked. "1 soldier dead, 30 civilians alive. From a practical standpoint, you lost a trained fighter and gained nothing. We gained 30 futures," Jake said. 30 people who will grow up, have families, create things, solve problems. 1 person's sacrifice created possibilities for dozens of others." Lyra smiled. "This is what I mean. Humans see potential where others see only numbers." Vec Thorn slammed his fist on the table. "Potential means nothing without the strength to achieve it. Your species is weak and divided. You fight wars over resources you have in abundance. You destroy your own planet while dreaming of the stars. You're right, Jake admitted. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. But we also learn from them, and when we're threatened, we come together in ways that surprise everyone, including ourselves. Empty words, Vecthorn said. Prove it. Dr. Price held up a hand. Actually, I am curious about this as well. Humans are biologically unremarkable, technologically primitive, and politically fragmented. Yet the Empress believes you have value. I would like to understand why. Jake looked at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. 10 years ago, I found a dying alien in a crashed ship, Jake said. I had no idea who she was or where she came from. For all I knew, she could have been an enemy scout or a weapon designed to look helpless, but she was hurt and alone, so I helped her. Why? Dr. Price asked. Because it was the right thing to do. But how did you know it was right? You had no data about her species, no way to calculate the consequences of your actions. Jake struggled to find the words. I didn't need data. I could see that she was in pain. She was afraid. She needed help. That was enough. Vecthorn snorted. Emotions, weakness. No, Jake said firmly. Strength. It takes courage to help someone when you don't know if they'll help you back. It takes strength to risk everything for a stranger. Dr. Price was quiet for a long moment. Fascinating. Your species makes decisions based on emotional responses rather than logical calculations. This should lead to chaos and extinction, yet somehow, you continue to survive and grow. We survive because we help each other, Jake said. When one of us falls, others lift them up. When we face impossible odds, we find ways to beat them together. Lyra stood up. This is why I believe humanity deserves a place in the galactic community. Not as subjects or enemies, but as partners. They have something we have lost in our pursuit of perfection. And what is that? Vecthorn asked. The willingness to try impossible things, Lyra said. To hope when logic says there is no hope. To find solutions that exist outside traditional thinking. Dr. Price smiled her unsettling smile. Very well. I propose a test. Jake felt his blood run cold. What kind of test? The kind that will prove whether humans are worthy of galactic citizenship, Vecthorn said, showing all his terrible teeth, or whether they should be eliminated before they become a threat. Lyra's face went pale. Vec, we agreed. We agreed to evaluate the humans, the War Prime interrupted. This is how the Krex evaluate everything. Through conflict. Dr. Price nodded. The Syndicate concurs. A controlled test of human capabilities under pressure. If they pass, we will support their inclusion in galactic society. If they fail... She did not need to finish the sentence. Jake looked around the table at 3 alien powers that could destroy his world with a thought. Humanity was about to be tested, and he had a feeling that failing meant extinction. The meeting at the United Nations was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every country sat in the same room, watching as Jake Morrison stood at the podium. Behind him, a holographic display showed the alien ships still floating over major cities around the world. Jake had never been so nervous in his life. 3 days ago, he was a lighthouse keeper. Now he was speaking to the leaders of the world about the future of humanity. 3 alien powers control most of the galaxy, he began, reading from notes that Lisa Grant had helped him prepare. Lisa was his old friend from the Marines, now a lieutenant colonel in the new Space Force. She sat in the front row, giving him encouraging nods. The Zephyrian Empire offers us partnership. The Krex Coalition sees us as either useful allies or dangerous enemies. The Void Syndicate wants to study us like lab rats. All 3 agree that humanity needs to be tested before we can join galactic society. President Robert Kane raised his hand. What kind of test, Mr. Morrison? Jake swallowed hard. A military. 1. The Krex Coalition believes that only strong species deserve to survive. They're going to attack our moon base in 1 week. If we can defend it using only human technology and tactics, we pass. If we can't... He did not need to finish. Everyone understood. UN Secretary General Maria Santos stood up. This is unacceptable. We will not be bullied into proving ourselves through violence. With respect, ma'am, Jake said. We don't have a choice. This test is happening whether we want it or not. The only question is whether we're ready for it. The room erupted in angry voices. Some leaders wanted to accept Empress Lyra's protection. Others demanded that Earth fight all three alien powers. A few suggested surrendering immediately to avoid casualties. In the back of the room, tech billionaire Alex White was typing on his phone. Jake had been warned about him. Intelligence agencies suspected that White was secretly communicating with the Void Syndicate, hoping to trade human technology for alien knowledge. May I speak? Lisa Grant asked, standing up. President. Kane nodded. The floor recognizes Lieutenant Colonel Grant. Lisa walked to the front of the room. She was tall and confident with the bearing of someone who had seen combat and survived. I've fought alongside Jake Morrison, she said. I've seen what humans can do when they're cornered. The aliens think this test will prove we're weak. I think it's going to prove them wrong. How can you be so confident? Asked the Prime Minister of Canada. They have weapons we can barely understand. Because they don't understand us either, Lisa replied. They see our small numbers, our simple weapons, our divided governments, and they think we're helpless. They don't see what we really are. And what's that? President Kane asked. Survivors, Lisa said simply. Every day, humans do impossible things. We climb mountains that can't be climbed. We cure diseases that can't be cured. We explore places that can't be explored. When something is declared impossible, we take it as a challenge. Jake thought about the men and women he had served with, about firefighters who ran into burning buildings, about doctors who worked in war zones, about teachers who refused to give up on difficult students. The Krex think strength means having bigger weapons, he said, but human strength is different. We don't fight because we're not afraid. We fight because we are afraid and we do it anyway. The debate continued for hours. Finally, President Kane called for a vote. The result was close, but clear. Humanity would face the test. The next week was chaos. Every military in the world worked together to prepare for the attack on Luna Base. The Moon facility had been a joint international project, home to 300 researchers and support staff. Now it would become humanity's testing ground. Captain Ben Torres was chosen to lead the defense. He was a pilot with the Space Force, experienced in the handful of combat spacecraft that Earth possessed. His ships were tiny compared to the alien vessels, but they were fast and maneuverable. We can't match their firepower, Ben told his pilots during the final briefing. So we're not going to try. We're going to use every dirty trick humans have ever invented. Jake watched the preparations from Lyra's flagship. The Empress had insisted he stay with her during the test, both for his safety and as an observer. Vec Thorne and Dr. Price were also watching, curious to see how humans would perform. Your species fascinates me, Dr. Price said as they looked at the tactical displays. You have no chance of victory, yet you continue to prepare as if you can win. Maybe that's because we define victory differently than you do, Jake replied. The attack began at dawn, Earth time. Vec Thorne's ships approached Luna Base like a pack of hunters. They were beautiful and terrible, black spears that seemed to drink in the light of the stars. Ben Torres and his squadron were waiting. They had positioned themselves among the asteroid field between Earth and the Moon, using the rocks as cover. Remember, Ben's voice came over the radio. We're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to prove that humans are worth keeping around. The first phase of the battle was brief. The Krex ships were faster and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. Within minutes, half of Ben's squadron was destroyed. But then something happened that surprised everyone, including Jake. Ben Torres aimed his damaged ship directly at the largest Krex vessel and began accelerating toward it. Torres, what are you doing? Came a voice over the radio. Something they won't expect, Ben replied. At the last second, Ben and his crew ejected in escape pods. Their ship, now a guided missile, slammed into the Krex vessel at tremendous speed. The alien ships Shields absorbed most of the impact, but the surprise was complete. Impossible, Vecthorn said, his 4 eyes wide with shock. He sacrificed his ship for no gain. No, Jake said, watching as the other human pilots began copying Ben's tactic. He showed them that we're willing to lose everything to win. The battle turned into something no one had expected. The remaining human ships began coordinating in ways that defied military logic. They used their own vessels as weapons, ejecting crews at the last second and ramming Krek ships. They hid behind debris and launched surprise attacks. They even used the moon's gravity to slingshot themselves into impossible positions. Most importantly, they never stopped trying. Even when their ships were destroyed, the crews and escape pods continued to fight, using portable weapons and improvised tactics. This is not warfare, Vecthorn said, but his voice held a note of respect. This is something else. This is humanity, Lyra said softly. The final human ship belonged to Ben Torres's second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Wilson. Her ship was damaged and drifting, but she was still fighting. Using the moon's communication array, she broadcast a message to the Krek's fleet. "This is Lieutenant Amy Wilson of Earth's Space Force," she said. "You've destroyed our ships and killed our people. But you haven't broken us. You can't break us because we're fighting for something you don't understand." "And what is that?" came Vecthorn's voice over the communication channel. "Each other," Amy replied. "Every person on Luna Base, every family back on Earth, every human who will be born in the future. We don't fight because we hate you. We fight because we love them." There was silence for a long moment. Then Vecthorn's ships began to withdraw. "The test is complete," the War Prime announced. Jake held his breath. Had humanity passed or failed? "I came here expecting to find weakness," Vecthorn said. "Instead, I found something I have never seen before. A species that becomes stronger when it should become weaker. That finds hope where there should be despair." He turned to look at Jake. "Humans are not warriors in the way the Kreks understand warfare, but they are fighters in a way that transcends warfare. I recommend that they be granted full membership in the galactic community." Dr. Price nodded slowly. "The Void Syndicate concurs. Humans possess qualities that cannot be replicated or manufactured. They will be valuable allies." Lyra smiled, and Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Humanity had passed the test. But, as he looked at the casualty reports from Luna Base, Jake realized that the real test was just beginning. Now humanity had to figure out how to survive in a galaxy full of beings who were older, stronger, and smarter than they were. The pendant around his neck grew warm, reminding him of the moment 10 years ago when everything had started. One act of kindness had led to this moment. Now humanity would need many more acts of kindness, courage, and hope to build a future among the stars. 1 year later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Freedom Station, the first human-built facility in deep space. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of different species coming and going. Human vessels worked alongside Zephyrian cruisers while Krek's fighters practiced maneuvers with Earth's newest pilots. It was not the future anyone had expected. Jake wore a simple blue uniform now, marking him as Earth's first galactic ambassador. The title still felt strange to him. A year ago, he had been a lighthouse keeper. Now he was helping to write treaties that would shape the future of human civilization. "The Council is ready for you, Ambassador," said his assistant, a young woman named Kate Sullivan. She had been a diplomat before the aliens arrived, and she helped Jake navigate the complex world of galactic politics. Jake nodded and walked toward the council chamber. The pendant still hung around his neck, but now it served a different purpose. It had become the symbol of the new Terran-Zephyrian alliance, proof that friendship could exist between species that had never met before. The Galactic Council was unlike anything in human experience. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in a vast circular chamber. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that Jake still had trouble understanding how they communicated. At the center of the chamber, 4 seats marked the major powers. Empress Lyra represented the Zephyrian Empire, her blue skin glowing softly in the chamber's light. War Prime Vec Thorn sat across from her, his armored form smaller than Jake remembered. The month since the test had changed the Krek's leader. He seemed less aggressive, more thoughtful. Dr. Nova Price represented the Void Syndicate, her black eyes scanning the room like she was cataloging everything she saw. And in the fourth seat, representing humanity for the first time, sat Jake. Morrison. The council recognizes Ambassador Morrison, announced the chamber's speaker system. Jake stood up, still feeling nervous after dozens of these meetings. Thank you. I have a report from Earth's Integration Committee. Over the past year, humanity had been working to join galactic society. It was not easy. Humans had to learn new technologies, new languages, new ways of thinking about the universe. But they were adapting faster than anyone had expected. Earth's population has voted to accept the Galactic Development Package, Jake announced. We're ready to begin construction of our first interstellar ships. There were approving sounds from around the chamber. The development package was a set of technologies and knowledge that would help humanity expand beyond their solar system. It was a gift from the older species to welcome Earth into the galactic community. What about the colony proposals? Asked a representative from the Andraxis Union, a species that looked like walking trees. We've selected 3 star systems for human expansion, Jake replied. All uninhabited worlds that can support human life with minimal terraforming. The first colony ships will launch next year. Vec Thorn leaned forward. And military cooperation? The Human Defense Corps is training with both Zephyrian and Krek's instructors, Jake said. We're learning your tactics, but we're also teaching you ours. Captain Ben Torres has been promoted to Admiral, and he's working on new strategies that combine human creativity with alien technology. Ben had survived the battle at Luna Base, though his ship had not. The experience had changed him, and he had become one of Earth's most effective military leaders. His willingness to sacrifice everything for victory had earned him respect throughout the galaxy. The Syndicate is pleased with human progress in the sciences, Dr. Price added. Your researchers have made several breakthrough discoveries in the past 6 months. The fusion of human intuition with Syndicate logic has proven productive. Jake smiled. That was high praise from Dr. Price. The Void Syndicate valued knowledge above everything else, and they had been surprised by humanity's ability to make scientific leaps that seemed to come from nowhere. There is one more matter, Lyra said, standing gracefully. The proposal for the Galactic Peace Initiative. The chamber grew quiet. This was the most ambitious project ever attempted in galactic history. The 4 major powers were proposing to create a permanent council for resolving conflicts without warfare. It was based on human concepts of diplomacy and compromise, ideas that were still new to many alien species. The Zephyrian Empire supports the initiative, Lyra continued. We believe that the galaxy is ready for a new way of settling disputes. The Krex Coalition agrees, Vec Thorn said, his gravelly voice carrying across the chamber. War should be the last option, not the first. Humans have shown us that there are other forms of strength. Jake thought about the months since the Luna Base test. Vec Thorn had visited Earth 3 times studying human military history. He had been particularly interested in stories of soldiers who had refused to fight, who had chosen peace over victory. It had changed his perspective on what it meant to be strong. The Void Syndicate supports the initiative as well, Dr. Price said. Conflict disrupts research and wastes resources. A peaceful galaxy is a productive galaxy. Jake stood up for his part. Earth votes in favor of the Galactic Peace Initiative. We offer our world as the site for the Permanent Peace Council. If the other species agree. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, the major powers had agreed to settle their differences through negotiation rather than force. After the meeting, Jake walked with Lyra through the station's gardens. The plants came from dozens of worlds, creating a landscape that was both beautiful and alien. Children from several species played together among the flowers, their laughter echoing through the space. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not found me that day? Lyra asked. Jake watched a human girl teaching a young Zephyrian how to play hopscotch. Sometimes, but I think someone else would have helped you. That's what humans do. Perhaps, Lyra said. But it was you who made the choice. One moment of kindness that changed everything. They stopped at a memorial wall that listed the names of everyone who had died during the first contact period. Ben Torres's crew was there, along with the researchers, who had been killed during the Luna base test. Their sacrifice had made the peace possible. Was it worth it? Jake asked. All the people who died? All the fear and uncertainty? Lyra was quiet for a moment. Ask me in 100 years, she said finally. When human children are playing on worlds we have not yet discovered. When Krex warriors are protecting Zephyrian colonies. When Syndicate researchers are working with human scientists to unlock the secrets of the universe. A chime sounded through the station, announcing the arrival of a new ship. Through the garden's transparent dome, Jake could see a vessel unlike any he had seen before. It was long and sleek with markings from both Earth and Zephyr. The first joint expedition, Lyra explained. Humans and Zephyrians working together to explore the unexplored regions of the galaxy. Captain Torres is commanding the mission. Jake smiled. Ben had told him about the expedition months ago. It was exactly the kind of impossible mission that humans loved. Exploring dangerous space with alien partners, looking for new worlds and new possibilities. The Syndicate believes we will discover at least 12 new species, Lyra continued. The Krex think we will find new resources and strategic advantages. Do you know what I think we will find? What? Hope, she said simply. Proof that the galaxy is bigger and more wonderful than any of us imagined. Jake touched the pendant around his neck. It was warm as it always was when Lyra was near. But now the warmth felt different. Not like a beacon calling for help, but like a reminder of connection. A symbol of friendship that had grown into something larger. I should get back to work, he said. There are colony applications to review and the president wants a report on the new trade agreements. Lyra nodded. And I have a meeting with the Andraxis Union about cultural exchange programs. Who would have thought that being an Empress involved so much paperwork? They walked back toward the station's administrative section together. As they passed through the corridors, Jake saw the future of galactic civilization. Humans working, alongside aliens, sharing knowledge and dreams. Children from different worlds growing up together, learning that differences could be strengths rather than weaknesses. In the distance, he could see Earth through one of the observation windows. It looked small and blue and fragile, but it was home to the species that had changed everything, the species that had proven that kindness was not weakness, that hope was not foolishness, that helping others was the greatest strength of all. Jake Morrison had saved a blue girl 10 years ago, and today she had returned as an Empress. Everything had changed, just as the title promised. But some things had stayed the same. Humans were still willing to sacrifice for others. They were still finding hope in impossible situations. They were still proving that the best way to face the unknown was with open hands and open hearts. The pendant around his neck pulsed with gentle light, and Jake smiled. The future was uncertain, but it was bright with possibility. And that was all any species could ask for among the stars.